Hi everybody, my name is David Petrino and I am the Nash Family Director for the Cohen Center for Recovery for Complex Chronic Illness in New York City. It's Long COVID Awareness Day again, and this year I really want to send out a message of hope for everybody who is at home waiting for care, waiting for positive research results or new treatments to emerge. This has been a really busy 12 months, and we have been learning a lot, not just about the pathobiology of long COVID, ME/CFS, and other infection-associated chronic illnesses, but we've also been making a lot of progress in clinical trials. Right now, at this moment, our team is running over 10 different actionable clinical trials that can be quickly translated into patients as soon as we see good results. And we're also planning even more clinical trials in the future to keep the ball rolling and to keep our discovery going. I think it's so important for everyone at home to keep hope alive, because we do believe that we are making progress. We are starting to help more and more people in our clinic that previously we weren't able to help. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard work, and sometimes we're helping one person at a time. One clinical trial drives one discovery that helps one person. But you know what? If that's the way we have to do it, then that's the way we're going to do it. One person at a time, leaving no one else behind. So please, this year, keep the faith with us and keep on fighting, because we're going to be fighting with you. We're not going to stop until everybody in this community has answers. So I'm wishing you all a hopeful Long COVID Awareness Day, and thank you all for everything that you do.
I'm Layla Yonker. I'm a pediatric physician scientist at Mass General Hospital in Boston, and I'm studying how we can improve clinical care for people, including children, with long COVID. We have several projects underway in my lab. First, we're trying to understand how and why neutrophils are activated in long COVID. Neutrophils are really effective at fighting infection, but sometimes when they're overactive, they can actually contribute to harm and exacerbate inflammation. And we're trying to understand why that seems to be the case in long COVID. We're also trying to understand why and how neutrophil inflammation is contributing to endothelial injury in long COVID. Much of what we're learning has been based on samples that have been provided to us from families and children with long COVID. So if you or your family member has contributed to our research, thank you. And importantly, we're trying to advance care. We have one clinical trial underway that's studying whether lorazepam, which is a zonulin inhibitor, can improve symptoms of long COVID. But we're also advocating for other clinical trials more broadly to include children, because we don't want children to have to wait until after clinical therapies are available for adults before they can access them. Progress is being made, and I sincerely hope that someday we'll have effective and targeted therapies for long COVID, and that these therapies are accessible to everyone, children included. Thank you for your support and your advocacy. Keep up the good work.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Ryan. I'm a gastroenterologist in Australia that helps manage patients with long COVID. I'm bringing you this short video on International Long COVID Awareness Day 2025 to let you know that each day that passes, we're a step closer to effective treatments for long COVID. My practice focuses on complex patients suffering from long COVID and its common comorbidities, POTS, MCAS, and EDS. By managing such complex patients day in, day out has allowed me to appreciate just how important the gut is in managing patients with long COVID for all of their symptoms. My aim for 2025 is to write up clinical guidelines that are simple and easy to follow and allow patients suffering from long COVID to get effective relief from severe and disabling gastrointestinal symptoms, and in doing so, actually help their long COVID symptoms outside of the gut. Just remember, the long COVID community, which consists of patients, carers, researchers, and clinicians, is one of the most amazing networks and communities out there. I am proud to be a member of the long COVID community.
Hello, I'm Risha Pretorius. I want to take a moment today to speak to those living with long COVID, their caregivers, and the researchers working tirelessly to understand the condition. To every patient and family facing the daily struggles of long COVID, you are seen, you are heard, and you are not alone. I know the journey feels overwhelming and questions about the future can be heavy, but I want to tell you this. Research is progressing. Every day we uncover new insights into the biology of the condition, and with knowledge comes the power to change outcomes. To my fellow researchers, your dedication is crucial. Every discovery brings us closer to better diagnostics and ultimately treatment options. Together we move forward and hold on to hope because change is happening. We will not stop until we find answers.
I've noticed this whole trend on social media where people record videos in their car, so I'm going to try that today. I was asked on this long COVID awareness day to talk about what brings me hope. And I may be one of the more pessimistic people you'll meet, so I actually took this on as something of a personal project. And I was asked for a reflection in my capacity as a researcher and a clinician with some visibility out there in the world, but I won't talk about hope through these lenses because that's not where I find it. And while I may be a pessimist, ironically, I don't lack in hope for people with long COVID, ME/CFS, and other complex chronic conditions frequently associated with an infection. So you see, being hopeful takes a lot of work. It's an active process of challenging yourself every day to find a realistic upside. Sometimes it feels impossible and indefensible and lonely. And yet here people are with long COVID, presented with this challenge every day. The first step to being hopeful, I think, is being honest. That keeps hope from being baselessly optimistic, untethered to reality. We're 5 years in. We have no approved cures. The scientific evidence base has not yet caught up with what our patients and their carers often know from lived experience. Much of the world has moved on. COVID-19 and long COVID have faded from the headlines. Now, some people might find these facts to reduce hope, but I think acknowledging them gives us permission to find the real things to be hopeful about. I find hope in the process. People who are earnestly trying to do better and to do the best work possible, even the people I don't agree with and may grouse about from time to time. I find hope in the community, our shared community of people living with long COVID in its many forms, the clinicians working to establish best practices, and the scholars who are working hard to understand more and to find cures. I find hope in both giving and receiving help. That vulnerability is part of our human condition, and it makes the world and the people in it worth saving. And I hope, at least in time, you can find hope in these things too.
I'm Nancy Klimas. I'm at Nova Southeastern University, and I have been working in the field of people who suffer chronic illnesses after acute infections for a long, long time, as an ME/CFS investigator, and then again for veterans who had been exposed to toxins in their deployment, who also have illnesses very similar to ME/CFS and long COVID. So you could imagine that in the year 2020, when COVID hit, that we in this group here were saying, uh-oh, here we go again. And in some way you could say serendipity that we happen to already be in this and care a lot about people who've had these terrible illnesses, and that we could anticipate and be maybe more prepared than some to handle what turned out to be the long COVID post-pandemic or whatever pandemic related crisis that so many of you have suffered from and are dealing with. So on one hand, it gave us a head start, which is good for you. That means that already in the field, before COVID even hit, there'd been a fair amount of work done on what happens to people's brains and bodies after they got a viral hit and why things persist. So we weren't starting from zero, which was really important. The other thing that happened during the pandemic, because it was just such a crisis and so many people got ill, that people noticed. You know, in MECFS, there was like the invisible illness. You had to convince people it was even real to get anyone to listen. There's a tremendously misunderstood, underfunded, still today, underfunded, misunderstood group, but less so, because long COVID sadly hit so many people that almost everybody knows somebody who has long COVID. And so a lot of Congress people knew a lot of people with long COVID, and that mattered. A lot of advocates that were advocating efficiently for other things before there was COVID already knew how to advocate and already knew how to use political pressure to develop ways to get the attention that this illness was going to need. And so, as you know, the recovery initiative was born from a very large federal investment, and then pushed a little further along with the second wave of investment, so that almost $2 billion has been invested in long COVID. I know if you have long COVID that you're saying, well, whoop-de-doo, I'm not better yet. But the truth is that from the time that started to this now, it's been less than 3 years. And in 3 years' time, there've been thousands, not hundreds, thousands of articles trying to understand the underpinnings of this illness, develop complex models and ways to better understand how to treat, tease out the subgroups, try to understand why some people stay ill and other people seem to recover. These are all studies underway that are funded, that are well funded, that are well designed. I'll give you an example. In MECFS, I was on the Institute of Medicine panel about 7 or 8 years ago, and they reviewed the entire literature of MECFS. And they said, man, there are hundreds of promising studies here, but there are so few studies that have been validated. So many studies that had 40 or 50 or maybe 100 people in them. And if you look right now in the long COVID literature, these studies aren't small. These studies are definitive. These studies are blowing your mind with the evidence that's clear, strong, well-designed. Because it's well-funded, you can design a really strong study with enough people in it to be able to say, oh yeah, that's the real deal. When you have it designed in a way that you can't argue with the results. So I'd say not only are there a lot of studies in long COVID, there are a lot of studies you can't argue about. So what have we learned? Well, there's a lot of overlap with what I was saying is MECFS or military toxic injuries, and that neuroinflammation is important, that mitochondrial function is important, bioenergetics is important, autonomic function is important. So all these complicated interactive systems are out of sync and leaning in a kind of sick way on each other to stay in a sick balance. So we knew that was happening before, and clearly we expected to see it in long COVID, and yeah, sure enough, there it is. But there's something unique about long COVID that makes us even more hopeful that that kind of knowledge will lead to really outstanding types and targeted interventions that make a real difference. And that's because across the board, it all started with COVID. We know what triggered it. We know what the first weeks and months looked like. We know what the risk factors are that made it more likely to develop long COVID versus recovery. These are all areas of that really help you understand the cascade of events that results in a chronic illness. And that lets you try to do two types of research: protect the future people from getting this. And there's some cool work on prevention. And then take care of the people who are sick now and how to get them better. So one thing we do know is that you can learn a lot from people who recover. So I'll take an example. I saw a patient yesterday in my clinic who was as sick as any sick person could be, totally knocked off their feet for 2 years, in bed, dysautonomic to the point they could barely raise their head, their heart should race, and all the autonomic, blood pressure and cardiac stuff that goes on from that part of it. Lots of inflammation, microclotting, all the mechanisms you read about, all engaged in this person. And yet, over the last 6 months, layer by layer, things are getting better. Why? Because when we can look at the literature and we say, oh my gosh, like these people suffer from microclots and their mast cells are dysregulated and they're this and they're that, gives me as a clinician right now, not a clinician waiting for the evidence-based research with 1,000 people to come out, but right now in an individual, I know what to measure to see if there's something that I could help. Okay, something I didn't know 2 years ago, but I know now because the research taught me where to look. So now better and better quality of care is available. Every single day we're learning about things that help us find ways to treat and make a difference even in the sickest patients. So that's exciting. Now, I will say the most exciting thing will be when someone hits it out of the park, when they say, aha, I pushed this button and that button and that button and boom, all better. And so there are these kinds of studies, and we have one coming up ourselves, that we hope that are, pushing some key feature that may or may not be what's my best example? In HIV, we treated everything, right? People have viral reactivation because their immune systems were really crummy, right? So we treated EBV and all the things that we treat right now. And most of y'all are seeing that you have viruses reactivated, and that's a treatment point. Is it the whole be all and end all of the illness? No, but it's something that's helping keep it going. In HIV, we knew patients suffered from malnutrition because their GI system got messed up. So we treated their GI system and we really helped the way they could absorb nutrients and improve their healing. But the truth is we never really helped HIV until we discovered the HIV virus. That was important. And that we found very quickly, and from 1984 to 1993, I was in science 7 years, to go from a bug no one even knew before to a bug that had 12, 13 different antivirals. And then we found out what combinations worked. And by 1994, if you had HIV, you were not likely to die from this anymore. Now, in between, personally, in my clinic, we lost more than 1,000 people. It was devastating. But to be there in 1994 and be able to look at someone who was cachectic in a nursing home and say, this is it. This is amazing. And I have a guy right now sent me a picture. He was 88 pounds and he'd given all his stuff away. He was mad. He said, I had to declare bankruptcy, Dr. Klimas, because God damn it, I'm still alive. And I gave all my stuff away and worked my credit cards out to the limit and had a great party before I checked into that nursing home. But he sent me a picture of himself playing basketball and for the first time ever, what's it called when you jump up and dunk? Oh, he dunked a ball. He's playing with a bunch of tall guys. He's kind of short. He was able to get up in the air like a skyrocket and dunk that ball. And he sent me the video and said, "Look at what I can do now." And I was like, "Man, that felt good." Okay, helped him hang on until 1994. He's lots of times when he could have given up, but we got it. And here he is. That's pretty damn cool. So I'm just going to say to you, it takes time. Science is methodical. Science is careful. Science is better the more methodical it is. And the answers will come for you. And they are coming right now, and they're coming fast and furious. So just, I know it's hard to be patient when you're so terribly ill, but take the hope you need to take, okay? Because we're going to kick this thing. We're going to figure it out. We're going to find the answers for you, and we're going to keep at it until we do. So, hang in there. Let's go. Let's cure this thing. And I'm all about that. So, keep the faith. Take care, y'all. Feel better soon.
Hi, I'm Svetlana Bleachstein, director and founder of Dysautonomia Clinic in Buffalo, New York. I am a neurologist who specializes in autonomic disorders and long COVID. Exactly 15 years ago, one research group published a study on POTS where they found that in patients with POTS, there were smaller hearts and lower blood volume than in healthy controls. Their paper conclusion was, and I'll read it, it seems reasonable to offer POTS a new name based on its underlying pathophysiology, the Grinch syndrome, because in his famous children's book by Dr. Seuss, the main character had a heart that was 2 sizes too small. So at Dysautonomia International a few years ago, I debuted my own Dr. Seuss poem on POTS. And today, on this Long COVID Awareness Day, while there is nothing funny about Long COVID, I would like to bring you some cheers in the form of my own version of Dr. Seuss on Long COVID. There it is. Long COVID is not psychogenic, not psychiatric, not somatization, not functional neurologic, not caused by fear, not from your tears, not because you're weak. And yes, you really are that sick. It's not in your head and not from staying in bed. Long COVID is not in your mind, not caused by lockdowns or life's daily grind. But it is physiologic and it is neurologic. So let's stop psychologizing and let's start strategizing how to help patients running out of patience, forced to endure while waiting for a cure. While a cure for now seems elusive, long COVID is highly inclusive. It certainly doesn't discriminate, and money or power cannot eliminate it. But we will not stop trying because there is no denying that if we put our heads together, we conquer the hardest endeavors. Hope comes from science and funds and work of the brilliant minds. Hope comes from kindness and love when life is especially tough. So let's put our egos aside and work on improving the lives of millions of people worldwide who need us to keep hope alive. To the people with long COVID, ME/CSF, dysautonomia, and other complex chronic disorders, please don't give up. We are working hard to bring effective therapies out to you.
Today, on Long COVID Awareness Day, I want to share with you a message of hope. So I asked the image generator, DALL-E, to draw me a Rubik's Cube that says infection-associated chronic illness. And this is what it generated. And I actually think that despite this not being what I asked for, I think it perfectly captures and conveys the current state of research on infection-associated chronic illnesses, including long COVID. I think that what you can see from this is that there are some pieces that we think we know that are wrong, and there are some pieces that we need to know that are missing, but we can almost just see how this is going to fit together and how these different pieces are starting to come together. And I know that research is slow, and I know that when you're sick, it just cannot happen fast enough to help take action today. But I think that with so many people affected right now, and I think that with so many clinicians and researchers coming together around the world to try to find answers, I really do think that in this last year we've made some tremendous progress. And this Rubik's Cube is going to look even more full next year. In my lab, there are several questions that are really guiding our research, and 3 of them I wrote out here for you. One, why doesn't everybody bounce back from an infectious disease? Why do infection-associated chronic illnesses skew female?
And how do we distinguish between protective and catastrophic immune responses to infection? To get at this, we have in my lab both a mouse model of chronic Lyme that we work on, but we have also been hard at work on this clinical study happening at MIT called Maestro. And the concept behind this clinical study is really to leave no stone unturned. And the idea here is that we are just admitting that we don't understand what is going wrong. And we are looking at everything and collecting everything that, people will volunteer. And I have to say here that the only reason that a study of this scale is possible is a testament to the incredible chronic illness community. Our long COVID and chronic Lyme participants have come not only locally from Boston, some people have traveled far and wide in order to participate at cost to themselves and with no compensation to date. And, study visits can take 4 hours, 5 hours, where, this is quite a grueling set of different tests that we're running. And the reason that people are doing this is so many people are really trying to help and trying to make things better for others and trying to help us find answers so that it really doesn't need to be this way moving forward. And I can't thank our participants enough. And if you've participated in Maestro, you've probably seen some of these folks here on my team and from the Center for Clinical and Translational Research, where we run our study. One of the things that I want to focus on in this message here today is that as pieces of this puzzle do start to come together, different features that we are characterizing in Maestro, we've already started publishing on and will continue to publish on. But in particular, I wanted to call out these 3 aspects. One, because I think that it's becoming very clear that different kinds of immune responses, especially allergic type responses, are definitely a major feature, at least for some of the people experiencing long COVID. And one of the things that we're tracking is, the extent to which we can identify mast cell activation and the extent to which we can identify these allergic type reactions, as well as medications that people are taking to manage these reactions and to stabilize their mast cells. We have a whole set of neurocognitive testing that we're utilizing to try to get a better understanding of some of these most debilitating manifestations of the neuroinflammation that people are experiencing and cognitive dysfunction. And some of these also let us ask questions about blood flow, like that stat earpiece on the bottom known as Lumia. But also in regards to blood flow, we're able to follow, so many advances have happened thanks to Team Clots and huge progress that has happened this year in our understanding of these microclots, of different alterations to the vasculature and the blood flow, and the blood thinner protocols that people are trying, low dose naltrexone that people are trying for the inflammation, and metformin, and all these other different approaches that are being taken. These are all things that we're tracking in our own participants and really trying to understand in regards to the mechanisms of what are going wrong, what could be the best treatments for different biological networks and subsets of the different features that we're picking up in our participants. And so I just want to share with you this really, just the incredible potential of what is coming out of this research. And our clinical study nurse, Yuri Kim, is currently writing this up even as we speak, because this is just so important. Even before we finish completing Maestro, should complete by the end of this year, there's some things that are already standing out to us so clearly that we really do think could make a difference, and think that it's important to talk about. And one of those is, we are using these different neurocognitive tests, including that available through a company called Right Eye. They have eye tracking tests that can allow us to get a better sense of what's happening in the infection-associated chronic illnesses in both long COVID and chronic Lyme. And what we're seeing is some very clear changes, differences, problems that are coming across in eye tracking, in voltages, and I think that the potential here is that once we understand these things, one, there's tools available that people are already using to try to better understand, to try different therapeutics, including, of course, prism glasses and other tools like that. But there's also just the ability then to track these changes as they're happening, and to continue to test these things over time, so that we can really understand if things are improving, if things are getting worse, in a way that's really in a way that's quantitative, and that we can put numbers on it, so that we can really try to take something as ambiguous as brain fog, and really start to break that into pieces that we can better understand. And I think that as you watch this play out, and you see that this person is being instructed to follow something with their eyes that's moving in circles, and you can see very clearly that something is very, very, very wrong here. So one of the things that we have NIH funding to do, and for our chronic Lyme studies, and hopefully we may also have funding to do this through Long COVID Recover, is to develop these predictive diagnostics, where we can do illness trajectory maps that really try to follow out not just the way that antibody tests have been done before, but to do much higher resolution antibody tests that allow us to distinguish between protective and catastrophic types of immune responses. This could then allow us to really try to focus in on and understand these different types of catastrophic immune responses, such as those that drive allergic responses, neuroinflammation, loss of tolerance to cell flora. These are all really critical pieces that we're better trying to understand. And what I really want to leave you with is that there are just so many people coming together from very different disciplines, from different backgrounds who are trying to use their own skills to try to help us get a better understanding of this. And, one very recent example in my mind is when I just went to a mitochondria conference just a couple weeks ago, and so many people came up to talk to me afterwards who either have a loved one who's affected or have just had so many people reach out to them asking for help, and they want to help. They really do. And I think that the more the research community can really come together and put our heads together, I think that I really see a lot of progress ahead. And so I hope that you can hang in there with us as more of this comes together. And I just want to let you all know that we are very aware of what's happening in long COVID, and we're learning from you. We're learning from our participants. We're learning from the community and other researchers in what is very patient focused research, trying to help get us to a better place. So I am sending you all my best wishes and a lot of hope. Things are really, really, really moving forward. And I hope that you can see that.